Hi, I'm Anthony Ottawes, and this Web3D tutorial will be on cameras and camera movement in your Web3D project. First, let's talk about the repo. It's been updated to allow multiple scenes in the repo. Rather than having one experiment as we go along, the repo doesn't match the previous tutorials. I've split it out so that different scenarios can exist and you can play with different things. You can see the routing in there, how it goes to different projects. I hope this helps out. We've still got the ship, and I'm starting to list out the features that are in each scene. And we've got the Chinese courtyard and the different features that it's going over in a working example. And I've definitely got some more coming up. And I needed to split things out like this in order to not have them override things previously. Today we're going to be working with the Chinese courtyard scene. This is a low poly scene I developed to specifically work with Web3D and instances and a number of other things. It should be available on Blender Market or in the repo, however you want to get it. But we're going to be working with this scene today. What we're going to be accomplishing is being able to use HTML links, like I've got in the top left corner here, in order to move the camera to specific positions. So I'm already at the entrance. And if I want the camera to go to the center table, we're going to click on that link. And my system is not very happy about all the streaming requirements at the same time as doing this. It's usually much smoother. But you can see it does go to the center table, and it's going to look at it from the height that I told it to look at. If I want to go back to the entrance, we're going to click that, and it's going to take wherever you're at and zoom back out to the entrance. You can add as many locations here as you want, and it will transition between them. It will figure out the path to do so. So let's get into how to do that. Most of these tutorials start out from the perspective of knowing how to do stuff in Blender or starting in Blender, and this is no exception. We want to make sure that we have a camera set up in Blender, perspective camera, and it's in the position with the rotation that you want to start out with. We're going to copy this rotation and location from inside the code after we generate it. So it can help to either know the exact positions or set some empties or some other kind of marker for all the different positions that you're going to want to reference in code later on. It's going to be easier to set it in Blender and then copy and paste those when you are in the JSX file for the Web3D stuff. So set up your camera or set up multiple cameras, get them looking in the spots that you want, and then we will do the export to GLTF or GLB and transfer it to a JSX file. Once you've done your GLTF JSX conversion, you're going to want to go into the file it generates and find your perspective camera. You might have several perspective cameras, and that's fine, but you're going to find them, and whatever one that you want to start with, you're going to say make default equals true. And you might mess with some other settings here, but the main thing you want to do is get the position and rotation, copy it to the clipboard, and make sure that you understand what position that is going to have in reference to what you need to link with later. So that we don't have to scroll through a bunch of code with a bunch of models created from GLTF GSX. I took the relevant code for the camera move, I put it in gist. I'll put a link to that in the description, and we'll walk through it real quick here. So if you're not familiar with a context is just a React state that goes across pages. It is something that is worth learning. You're going to need to know what the states are and how to use context in order to get some information going between pages and between components. Use frame is a hook, so anything you see in React that starts with use is going to be a hook. They must be inside the component. Use frame will fire every single frame, so if it's going 60 frames a second, it's going to fire every time. It's going to include a clock with it so that you can tell every object that's going to move or anything that needs to animate what frame it is and calculate where it should be based on that frame. In this one, what we're doing is we have the camera state is a context or just a state across components where I'm keeping the position, which is where the camera is going to be, and then the target, which is what it's going to look at. Now when it comes to the position, it's pretty easy. There's a lerp function, and this takes whatever position you're currently at and will calculate where it needs to be based on the speed that you said it needs to get there and whatever the clock is. So that's pretty convenient, and you can always just plug that in for the position. But a little less intuitive is the look at, because the look at didn't have a lerp automatically built in. So you have to pass in the previous location and the destination in order for it to know where it's coming from, where it's going to, or the current location versus where it's going to in order to know where to go next. So here you can see how I've tied it to links. So if your React 3 Fiber stuff is inside the canvas, then we're going to have the links be outside the canvas. You could have something inside the canvas. I also did this with on-click things for meshes, just like we did in the last tutorial with animations. You can click on different meshes and have their events. But in this one, I wanted to also show outside links that are just like floating in front of the canvas that actually do things within the canvas and your Web3D stuff. So in this, I've got two links, the center table and the entrance. I showed those in the demo. And all they're doing is calling this function, the move to, with a position and what they're going to look at. And so you can see what I've set those to. The move to function, all it does is pass these on to the set camera state, and then the set camera state is used inside of the use frame. So especially when it's put together like this, it's not too complicated, and you can do as many of these as you want. And I see this as a way of doing navigation. You can have different things in the scene, different positions, things on the floor, things on walls, whatever. And as the user can click through different options that will do navigation, it'll take them to these different spots that are going to tell your story or take them to the next place. And that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to come on the Discord. I'd be happy to help you out with what you've got. I hope this example was simple enough to get you started getting cameras moving within your Web3D scene.